Hey everybody, Garrett that's Skewed and Reviewed here. So we're getting set to give you the upcoming movies of 2018 through 2020 panel. As you can probably tell from the bright light coming in through our skylight window, I am definitely not in Seattle. I'm down at our place in Phoenix. And, for those of you who are dealing with the cold and freezing weather, we're really sorry about that. We're going to be in the high 90s up till next week. And that's Fahrenheit, of course, not Celsius. Otherwise, we'd have a real problem, global warming and all. But we're looking forward to that because we can turn off the AC finally and start getting back to normal. Anyway, wanted to let you guys know you can check out all of our content online at sknr.net. If you prefer to hear us on the radio, you can check out BJ Shea's Geek Nation on KISW FM, and that'd just be KISW.com for you who want to listen on the internet, or you can get their app. And we also appear in 6 local newspapers. You can check it at Pinal, Pinal Central.com. Usually every Tuesday they have an article from us, just keyword skewed, and you'll see our offering. And of course, there's our content on our main site at sknr.net, and our new site, SkewedNet, SKEWEDNET.net. And that one's a free sign up, and we encourage you to do so. That way you can submit content from anywhere on the web, anything pop culture, movies, television, games, travel, anime, concerts, whatever you like, and it's all free, and we do randomly have pricing and stuff like that. So anyway, we're going to do a very quick look at the movies that are coming out in the next 3 years, and then at the end, if there's time, we'll talk about some television, that sort of thing. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email me at Gareth, Gareth, at sknr.net. Okay, so starting off with 2018, we have Insidious: The Last Key. This is the obviously new film in the Insidious series. So I saw the trailer the other day with Happy Death Day. It actually looks pretty interesting for those of you who like the Insidious film, so you do want to check that out. Next up, contrary to popular opinion, Liam Neeson had said that he is going to stop doing action films after this next film because he had said that he's getting too old, and then he kind of backtracked from it. It's not really an action film per se, but The Commuter is a very interesting film about a man who is coerced into coerced and set up during a commute on a rail train, and it has very dark, ominous tones to it. It looks quite good. Another film, obviously this one needs no introduction, is Marvel's Black Panther, and we'll be very interested to see how that plays out. One of the new and frequent offerings in 2018 and beyond that's coming in the Marvel Universe, and we'll have more about that soon. Now, the next 2 films that we're going to be discussing, and again, I apologize if we are rushing a bit because we have essentially 2 hours worth of content that we're knocking down to 45 minutes here. The next film is Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Now, this obviously is the next film that's to wrap up the Maze Runner series. We don't have any word yet whether the studio is going to look to do any of the prequel novels. I think a lot of that has to do with the box office. This film was delayed due to the fact that one of the stars of the film was involved in an on-set car accident, and his injuries were worse than they originally thought. He has made a full recovery, but needless to say, they needed to make a decent amount of time to let him be to rest, so they had to shut down production. They, of course, have completed the film and are now getting ready to release it. So it'll be interesting to see not only how they tie this up, but if the lengthy gap between films, when these films were coming out a year apart, is going to have any effect on the final box office numbers. Up next is Bruce Willis doing the remake of the Charles Bronson classic Death Wish. Now, the interesting thing about this film is that it was long rumored. We heard everyone from Schwarzenegger to Stallone looking into it. And what you have now is Bruce Willis doing it. But the interesting thing is the director is Eli Roth, who is known for his horror films such as the Hostel series and other films of that nature. So the film was supposed to be out very soon, but it was delayed because of the Vegas shooting. The studio thought it might be a little insensitive to have a vigilante justice type film going on, so they decided to push it back until after the holiday season, and essentially follows the same story. A simple everyday man is family is the victim of crime, the cops do nothing about it. He decides to take the law into his own hand and becomes a vigilante, dispensing his own brand of street justice. So it'll be interesting to see how close this follows to the original, and it'll be interesting to see how audiences react to this one. So another one coming out from Disney is A Wrinkle in Time. This is a very popular book series, and they've done a TV effort and so on. A lot of people thought it couldn't be made into a film, but I'm very interested to see what Disney has coming up. Now, 2018 is going to have a good number of remakes and other, what would you call them, reinterpretations as well as sequels. The first off is Tomb Raider, which is basically going forward with a new actress instead of having Angelina Jolie in the title role. If you've played any of the video games or seen the previous films, you know what to expect. Lara Croft out on adventures, trying to save the day, and to, of course, all manner of adventure, the female Indiana Jones, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Another film coming up is Pacific Rim Uprising, the long-delayed sequel to Pacific Rim. Guillermo del Toro doesn't really have much of a hand in this one, and he, there were a lot of starts and stops getting this into production. John Boyega is the lead on this. And one of the things that I've always found interesting about the films is that we were always told that they had to have these gigantic robots as the line of defense. And as I asked my wife, I said, well, if you can basically put railguns and all sorts of energy weapons on these things, couldn't you mount them up and down the coast of the various cities? Couldn't you mount them on, aircraft carriers or battleships, that sort of thing as well? Because to me it seems kind of silly that these things always appear in the water and that you need to get these things helicoptered into the water to fight them. To me, if you just put them on a bunch of floating platforms, automated, or put them up and down the coastline, you could do just as much damage with that. But, then I guess you don't have a story. So we'll see how that all plays out. The other one that a lot of people are really looking forward to is Steven Spielberg's interpretation of the classic novel Ready Player One. When I saw the trailers, it looked extremely CGI heavy, saw a lot of references to other pop culture and past films, but people have told me if you read the book, it is quite amazing. A lot of people have recommended that you read the book before seeing the film, so we'll see how that all plays out. Another one is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson appearing in Rampage, and this is indeed based on the popular video game series. For those of you who may or may not remember it, they had a Godzilla-type creature, a giant werewolf-type creature, and a King Kong-type creature, and your job was to basically climb buildings, fight each other, and smash buildings into the ground, and of course lay mayhem to people and weaponry and all sorts of things that come along. It was always done very tongue-in-cheek. Kind of expect a little bit of the same. Obviously going to be pretty CGI heavy because I don't expect people in a suit climbing up and down the building, but we'll see. We'll see. We haven't had a trailer yet. Other film coming, obviously been no secret about this, is Solo, a Han Solo story. This is the Han Solo prequel film, where the directors, Lord and Miller, were essentially fired or removed from the film to well into production. There have been a lot of rumors about what happened, and basically what we had been told is that there's a very strong script that was written for them, and they were essentially improvising it as they went along. We heard stories that literally right before they'd shoot a scene, they would tell the actors what their dialogue was, and they would encourage them to just improvise and make it up as they went along. They apparently had a very lax attitude. There was some talk that the crews would be set up and ready to film, and the two of them would be sitting around in the Millennium Falcon cockpit at like 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, just sitting around without even a single ounce of shooting had gone in. Well, word has it that the writer went over and told them they need to stick to the script. They chose not to do that. Apparently Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, even went to them and said, guys, you need to quit this improvisation. You need to follow the script. It's a solid script. This is what we greenlit. They continued not to do it, so Disney made the decision that with only a few weeks left in shooting, to remove them from the project. Ron Howard was brought in, and he began the task, as he said, of essentially looking through what had been shot, seeing what could be kept, what couldn't be kept. He began production on July 10th, and they just wrapped filming about a week ago. So he filmed over 3 months worth of material for it. So that, of course, begs the question, how much of the original content are they keeping? How much did they shoot out? Everything I've been told is that the crew and cast erupted into thunderous ovation when they heard that Ron Howard was taking over. The shoot apparently went exceptionally well under Ron Howard, and the big question is, again, how much of the original content that was done. We did a little bit of research on it, and it is entirely possible that Ron Howard filmed at least half, if not two-thirds, of the thing over, and if they were moving very quickly and not encountering delays, he could have essentially reshot the film. So again, it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. I think a big chunk of it also has to do with the fact that they're trying to figure out, credits. Believe it or not, there's a big dispute over how the directing credit and so on is going to be distributed for this film, so stay tuned for that. It should also be noted that the film is going to be coming out in the summertime, which I think is kind of a questionable move, simply because there's a lot of heavy competition in the summer, and one of the things about the Star Wars films coming out in December is that they don't have the competition that they do in the summertime, which allows them for a longer and more successful box office run. So we'll see how that plays out. Of course, filming up in your area that is just completed, Deadpool 2 with Ryan Reynolds is completed. Looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. One of the interesting things is that it has been announced that his katanas are indeed named B and Arthur with his Golden Girl reference, so we'll see how that comes. Looking forward to seeing the trailer very soon, but we're going to be getting the Incredibles 2 scheduled for next year. And we've been seeing some still photos of this. We expect a trailer hopefully soon, probably with Thor Ragnarok or soon after, but Ant-Man and the Wasp, actually, come to think of it, I think it's probably more likely you might see that around Black Panther, but we will see. Now, despite having an injury, which, say what you will, the man does most of his own stunts, if not all of them, and that was really impressive. Tom Cruise has injured himself on the set of the new Mission Impossible film. He has made a recovery. It was a leg injury from doing a swing stunt over, and he slammed into a building. He is all healed up, and they've resumed production, so they are still planning on Mission Impossible 6 to come out next summer, as well as Hotel Transylvania 3. Now, one film that we've been looking forward to, my son has been talking about this quite a bit because he's a huge fan of the book series, is Meg. Now, this is the one about the megalodon, the giant prehistoric sharks. It stars Jason Statham. It was originally going to come out in February, and then they pushed it back again, but it is due out in 2018. We're looking forward to a trailer. Essentially, think Jaws only with a great white shark that is 50 to 100 feet long. You have an idea of what you're looking for. So really excited to see how that plays out. Another film that's coming is essentially the fourth Predator film, if you don't count the Alien vs. Predator films, and this is called The Predator. Now, the interesting thing about this is Shane Black, who appeared in the original film as Hawkins. He also did a lot of directing. He was involved with the Lethal Weapon films, writing and directing, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, so on and so forth. He helped write the story, and he also is directing this, so a lot of people are considering this more of a true sequel to the original. We'll see how it plays out. Now, whether this part is misdirection or not, the word is that they offered Arnold Schwarzenegger a part in the film and he turned it down, which is very interesting. And I'm kind of wondering, considering that he has a good relationship with Shane Black, obviously he likes the source material. They were originally trying to do a cameo for Schwarzenegger in the first Alien vs. Predator film. I'm almost wondering if this was a little bit of, deception to try to make us think he's not in it, and all of a sudden he pops up in the film unexpectedly. So we'll see how that plays out. One of the next films we have coming out is Scarface, which is a remake of the classic Al Pacino film. And then we have a new version of Halloween. Now, the interesting thing about this is this was pitched by Danny McBride and his writing partner. John Carpenter, the producer, who is on board this one, really enjoyed it, took it to the studio, it got green lit. Now, we've been told that obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back, but supposedly the twist to this one is it may take place in an alternate universe, in that everything from the first film onward that has been done before is going to be thrown out, and they're going to treat this kind of as a direct sequel to the original film without being hampered by any of the things that came from the Halloween films that followed. One of the rumors we're hearing is that they're going to get rid of that plot twist from the second film about the connection between Jamie Lee Curtis's character and Michael Myers. So we'll see how that plays out as well going forward. We are going to see the Warner Brothers version of The Jungle Book. There were 2 live-action films in the works due out in 2018. We have the sequel to Fantastic Beasts. And of course we have Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Wrecks the Internet. We saw a tiny bit at the D23 Expo in Anaheim this year, and it looked fantastic. So we'll see, really looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. And of course, there's a lot of other really interesting things coming forward. Moving forward, we have Aquaman, which is just wrapped production. You have Bumblebee coming up, which is a Transformers spin-off film. And Mary Poppins Returns, which does indeed have Dick Van Dyke returning, as well as Lin-Manuel Miranda and Emily Blunt as the title character. You'll see that around Christmas time. And oh yeah, there's some film called Avengers Infinity War. Nothing's really known about that. No one really cares about it, so we can move on. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm sure all of you know about that and how the pretty much every Marvel character that has made a cinematic debut to date, it's all hands on deck. And so we'll see how that plays out. Another film I wanted to mention for 2018 is the 4th Purge film called The Purge: The Island. They are looking at a TV series as well, but the interesting thing about this is that it's going to take place kind of like an Escape from New York style, where they're going to be on an island talking about the very first purge. Now, from what we've been able to discover, the very first purge was an experiment, and they decided to limit it to an island near New York and treat it as an experiment. Instead of going nationwide, they were going to just do it on this one island, see how it went, and go from there. Obviously, we know how it does evolve from there over the first 3 films, so we shall see. Okay, so deep breath. We're now on to 2019. Up first is Glass, which is the sequel to Unbreakable. So yes, you'll see Samuel Jackson and company back for this one. Lego Movie 2. Then you have Channing Tatum dancing his way across the screen as Gambit. And so we'll be interested to see how that plays out. How to Train Your Dragon 3. Captain Marvel with Brie Larson. Now this is going to be set in the 80s. And they said there'll be a reason behind that, so don't expect any crossovers initially with any of the previous Marvel films, but we'll wait and see. There's Godzilla 2, the second film, and of course Tim Burton's Dumbo live-action film coming from Disney, which is always very interesting considering the creatures always have to be CGI'd, but you look at The Jungle Book, there's a prime example. Pretty much everything was CGI'd except for Mowgli, therefore live-action film. It's been off and on so many times, but we'll wait and see. We're going to be getting Shazam, and of course you know about the 4th Avengers film, so we'll see how this plays out. Rumor is the boy from Iron Man 3 is going to be making an appearance in the 4th Avengers film. We've also heard at least one, if not more, of the main cast may bite the big one in this one. Email me if you want to know the rumor. It's probably no secret if you do the math, because one member of the cast's contract is up, and he's been very adamant about ready to move on to other challenges, wants to be going into directing, so on and so forth. But remember the caveat, no one really stays dead in science fiction and fantasy if there's a way to bring them back. Speaking of dead and bringing back, definitely the dead part. Keanu Reeves is back for John Wick 3, and really looking forward to this one. They will be continuing, obviously, the storyline from the second film. There's also a John Wick TV series in the works, and Keanu Reeves has said that he's not opposed to making appearances in that as well. Now, the rumor is the TV series won't follow him directly. It will involve him, but it's about the hotel that he and the others in his trade apply their craft. So this allows them to basically do the TV series and give him the ability to come and go from the show as his schedule allows. Guy Ritchie is going to be doing Aladdin, which is another of the Disney live-action films. You have Will Smith as the genie. We have a 6th Transformers film currently being planned, so we'll see how that plays out. You have The Secret Life of Pets 2. A new Charlie's Angels with a brand new cast of angels is currently being discussed. and planned for a 2019 release, as well as Toy Story Part 4, which is basically tying into the fact that there is a Toy Story land under construction for not Disney World, but I believe it's the MGM studio, but the Disney World complex in Orlando. It is currently under construction. Same with the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And on a side note, we have seen the models for both of these. They look absolutely fantastic. The amount of detail in there, the sheer size of them is incredible. So definitely plan a trip if you get the chance down to Anaheim or Orlando to check those out. You have a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, tentatively titled Spider-Man Homecoming 2, set for 2019. And Tom Cruise will also be returning in the long-delayed, but he said it is going forward, Top Gun 2 Maverick. So we'll see what they have in store for that. There's also the live-action version of The Lion King coming out, and a new Fast and Furious film. Now, switching gears, we are going to see this go into production early next spring, and James Cameron is producing and writing, and the director of the first Deadpool film is the director on this one, and they're doing a Terminator 6. Now, before you guys all groan and moan about this, it is a very interesting concept. Essentially, what they're doing is they're pretending that Terminator 3, Terminator 4, and Terminator Genesis never happened. And what they're going to do is they're treating this as a direct sequel to Terminator 2, because remember, James Cameron is writing it. This is the first Terminator film since Terminator 2 that he has been involved with. So they're bringing Linda Hamilton back. Obviously, they're bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger back. There's no word about Robert Patrick or Michael Biehn or any of those yet. But what we've been told is that they're going to essentially set up a new female character and another cast around the original cast, with the possibility that the new characters will take over bigger chunks, if not all of any future films that may happen. But essentially, this is one of the ties that they're going to apparently do. As you remember, obviously the whole nature of the series is around time travel. So one timeline, another timeline, and so on and so forth. And they're going to say essentially Terminator 3, 4, and 5 were on these other timelines. This is either a whole new timeline, but somehow connects to the second film, and there you go. So that way everybody's appeased, and I, for one, am very excited, because James Cameron's writing the sequel. To me, this is the way that the creator wanted the series to go, and it will allow us to be able to look at it that way instead of someone else interpreting it. You have the sequel to It, which we're told is going to be more dramatic, less on the scare side, more on the suspense side. But It 2 is coming in 2019, as well as Daniel Craig's last outing is in the as yet untitled James Bond film. Now, due to popular demand, Disney had not planned on this originally, but overwhelming demand for it has pretty much pushed them into doing it. So you have the sequel to Frozen. Frozen 2 will be out in 2019. And the reason I mention that is if you look at the Disney films, not the Pixar films, the Disney films, even though I know it's the same parent company, Disney does not do a lot of direct sequels to their animated films. When they had a time in the VHS and DVD era where they would do these straight-to-video sequels like Lion King 1.5, Pocahontas 2, so on and so forth, stuff you can get on Netflix. But theatrical sequels to their big animated films you pretty much didn't see. So this will be an interesting twist to see how that plays out. And you're going to get Wonder Woman 2, Star Wars Episode 9, directed by J.J. Abrams, who's also essentially redoing the script. One of the reasons that Colin Trevorrow was removed from the film was pretty complicated. Essentially what happened was that he has got apparently quite an ego on him. I've always wondered what it was about him that got him such favored status. The guy made one film, folks, a low-budget independent film that I thought was average at best, with no stars and minimal special effects. And from that, he was given the keys to the kingdom to the Jurassic World series. Now, a lot of people forget. They all say, well, Jurassic World was a big hit, so on and so forth. People forget that he was pretty much doing his own thing in production. Universal Studios came in and essentially fired most of his staff, and including some of his hand-picked people, delayed the film almost a year, and essentially had this is how things are done at the major studio. Now, we've been told since he was potentially picked directly by Steven Spielberg, he had some protection. So the studio essentially threw down as much as they could. The way I always was told is essentially the producers ran this film. It was, shut up, here's your script, here's how it's going to be done, go and do it, and if you do what we tell you, as production moves along, we'll allow you a little more freedom, we will at least listen to some of your ideas, we have the final say, not you. Well, Jurassic World was a big hit, as we all know. In 2018, the sequel's coming out. He went on and did another film that was an absolute disaster, and apparently he was becoming more and more difficult to work with. His ego was just through the roof. You couldn't talk to him at all. His relationship with people at Lucasfilm started to deteriorate, and the big problem was apparently they couldn't come up with a final script that met the studio's standards, and one of the big issues was the finale. Apparently his scripting, based on a story from Rian Johnson, who's doing the current episode 8, essentially tied off things in a way that kind of made it difficult for them to do future installments with certain characters. I don't know whether he was trying to kill everyone off or whatever, but I was told that they just were very unhappy with the way the ending of the film was set up. So essentially you got J.J. Abrams in now, who, as the studio knows, is much easier to work with. He knows how to work with Kathleen Kennedy, and we see the film now delayed out to Christmas time again to give Abrams more time to rewrite the script. So we'll see how that all plays out. There's talk of a Masters of the Universe film. There's been talk about it forever, but now we're actually hopefully going to see it, and of course a live action version of Wicked. So, a lot of stuff here, folks, like I said. Moving on to 2020, we have Trolls 2, a new Fast and Furious film. There's also talk of a spin-off series, which has apparently lit a little bit of controversy and tension amongst the cast. There's Godzilla vs. King Kong, and it should also be noted that there's a lot of films currently untitled from Fox and DC superheroes. Like, for example, we get notes that'll say Untitled Fox/Marvel superhero film, Untitled DC superhero film. So essentially, you kind of have this situation where, let's say the Justice League movie tanks or doesn't do the expectations like Batman vs. Superman did. That might throw a lot of other spin-off films in disarray, because right now Wonder Woman is the only one that's met and exceeded expectations. So we'll see how that plays out. You have the second Minions film, and of course Harrison Ford returning for one last outing as Indiana Jones with Indiana Jones 5. You have a sequel to The Croods, Croods 2, and the the production's already started on this. You have the first of 4, count them 4, Avatar films, and Avatar 2 will be out in 2020. Now, I'm interested to see how they go with this. My guess is that, knowing how valuable that material is, I'm guessing Earth's going to return with a large military force to try to take it back, because they obviously can't be without the unobtainium, and we'll see how that plays out. We do know that the oceans are supposed to play a big chunk of time in this. For years ago, Cameron designed some special underwater vehicles with brand new state-of-the-art 3D. Now remember, most films that you see in theater are not 3D. They're shot conventionally, converted to 3D, which is a very performance. We're told that essentially, if you remember the Hobbit series, he being James Cameron, talked to the production team behind it, and they went over, Peter Jackson, so on and so forth, how to shoot this, a newer, higher definition 3D at a faster frame rate. That's why if you saw the film in 3D, in parts it almost looked like you were watching a play in front of you. Cameron apparently has found a way to take that technology into a new level, and we've even heard rumors that some of these Avatar films, they're shooting for a glasses-free 3D technology effect, so we'll see how that plays out. The sequel to Sing, or as it's currently known as Sing 2, is scheduled to come out also, and of course a lot beyond that we have a lot of rumors and innuendo and that sort of thing. So, switching over to TV, we have obviously the new season of The X-Files, season 11, which is due out this year. Gillian Anderson has said this is probably going to be it for her. I'm kind of wondering if this is a negotiation ploy, because apparently there was a very public salary dispute where she wanted to be paid as much as David Duchovny. She eventually got it, but you kind of wonder if this is just basically a salary negotiation or not moving forward. So you'll have that. You have 24. Now, the reboot of 24 did not go over very well, so they're not going to be continuing that storyline, but the producers have said they are not against doing more 24 in the future. Now, of course, the trick behind this is right now it's going to be without Kiefer Sutherland. He was an executive producer on the last one, but he's very busy with his show Designated Survivor, so we'll see how that plays out. One line that we're looking at very clearly is Seth MacFarlane's very good new show called The Orville. Live from New York Comic Con about a week and a half ago, he was not able to appear with the cast on stage because he was editing the season finale. He did appear via satellite, and he told the assembled audience that he is very confident that there will be a second season of the show. So fingers crossed, we're waiting for news on that. Marvel's The Inhumans has failed to really capture an audience. The ratings continue to slide each week for it. We heard some rumors that it was pretty much canceled before it even went to air, based on the lack of buzz from the special. For those of you who may not be aware, they released the pilot as an IMAX theater offering a couple weeks before it aired on television, and it has not done very well. And there are a lot of rumors to it. A lot of people think it's the writing's not been good, the cast they find doesn't have the chemistry, so on and so forth. I have my own theories about that, but I will not bore you with that. One of the other rumors we've heard is that ABC wanted to cancel Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but the parent company would not allow them to do that. I think one of the problems is that you have so many superhero shows on television. You have the decent ones, decent to good offerings from the Warner Brother network that you're very familiar with as they film it up in your area between The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, that sort of thing. You also have The Gifted, you have some of the other superhero shows, and there are apparently more on the way. And so I'm just kind of wondering if it's a situation where audiences are starting to say there's a glut, and when you consider all of the stuff on TV, to say nothing about the Netflix situation. And I do want to mention that Netflix has the Marvel shows, as you know, while Disney has announced their own streaming service, which is going to be starting very soon. When this begins, all future Marvel content, Star Wars content, and Disney content is only going to be available through their streaming service. Now, I, for one, am hoping they're going to unlock the vaults and let some of these old classics from the live-action films like the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, No Deposit, No Return, so on and so forth, the animated and live-action shows that I grew up with that have pretty much been unseen unless you were able to catch one of those VHS copies or early DVD copies back in the day. Be really interested to see how that plays out. Okay, so we are up against it on time. Just wanted to thank you all for your time and attention today. Remember, please shoot me any emails that you have, any questions. You can always reach me on Facebook, or again, Gareth, Gareth, at sknr.net. Make sure to check out our sites, and we will talk to you next time, folks. Have a wonderful time at Vcon, and we will talk to you soon.